Leave it to me to put one in his head.
No, I'm gonna bring him to justice.
The moment Cooper and Lucy encounter the cons, Fallout stops being a simple survival story and quietly becomes a moral battlefield. At first glance, this sequence seems like a detour caused by hunger, but that's only the surface. Underneath, it's a deliberate narrative test, designed to reveal how these characters respond when their values clash with the brutal logic of the wasteland. Before diving into the analysis, here's a quick recap. Starving and low on resources, Cooper and Lucy devise a plan to use the bounty on Cooper's head to trick the cons, aiming to collect the reward without bloodshed. When the cons' leader, Nick the Prick, refuses mercy, Lucy is forced to release Cooper, unleashing his ruthless survival instincts. The gang is wiped out, and the pair continue their search for Hank and Cooper's missing family, arriving near Las Vegas. Along the way, they debate ethics, question House's influence, face the fallout of Hank's actions on innocent people, and clash over how justice should be delivered. What makes this encounter brilliant is how it frames Lucy's moral code. In a world where violence is often the easiest, fastest path, Lucy deliberately chooses negotiation. Her plan is not naive, it is strategic, aimed at minimizing harm while still accomplishing the mission. The key here is that Lucy treats violence as a tool, not a solution. She understands that every choice carries moral consequences. Cooper, by contrast, doesn't share her idealism. He goes along with her plan not out of agreement, but because he understands manipulation and leverage. This difference becomes stark when Nick refuses to negotiate. Lucy clings to the hope of resolution without bloodshed, while Cooper already knows the inevitable outcome. When Lucy frees Cooper, the show frames his violent response not as heroic, but as necessary and efficient.
I'm not gonna apologize for not murdering people.
Cooper's rampage is quick, controlled, and emotionally hollow, a stark reminder that survival often rewards brutality in a world that punishes hesitation. What makes this sequence remarkable is how the show refuses to glorify the violence. Cooper's actions are effective, but they are morally neutral, even haunting. The audience is forced to grapple with the ethical cost of his survival, and Lucy's reaction underscores this. She doesn't recoil, she doesn't condemn, but the subtle fracture in her worldview becomes apparent. Her idealism is no longer sheltered, it is being tested against reality. This moral tension carries directly into the discussion about Las Vegas. Lucy wonders why the city survived the nuclear apocalypse while the rest of America burned. At first glance, it's a logistical question, but it quickly transforms into a critique of pre-apocalypse power structures. Cooper's reply, that everything happened according to House's script, reframes the apocalypse not as a random event, but as a calculated act. Survival was selectively distributed based on who House deemed worthy. The show is subtly asking viewers to consider, was the world destroyed because of human error or human indifference? Lucy's hopeful conjecture that Cooper's family may have survived near House introduces emotional stakes, and Cooper crushes it, not with cruelty, but realism. Safety and morality, he reminds her, are never guaranteed. The flea soup shop encounter further reinforces the stakes. The absurdity of the scene initially feels almost comedic, but the gravity hits once the shopkeeper reveals Hank killed her son. Hank is no longer an abstract antagonist, he becomes the living embodiment of the wasteland's moral decay. Lucy listens carefully, without dismissing or rationalizing. This moment is critical. It crystallizes her belief that justice is possible without vengeance. Cooper's instinct to kill Hank is logical, grounded in experience. The contrast between Lucy's restorative justice and Cooper's pragmatic violence is the heartbeat of the narrative. Fallout doesn't tell you who is right. It asks whether goodness can survive in a world that rewards cruelty. Lucy's character is strongest here, but also slightly vulnerable. Her optimism hasn't yet faced consequences severe enough to break it. She believes morality can influence the world, but Fallout subtly challenges this by forcing her to witness, and in some ways enable, violence. Cooper, on the other hand, is rewarded by the wasteland for every violent choice, which reinforces his worldview. Survival is about action, not ethics. The show intentionally positions them as mirrors to each other, each highlighting the strengths and weaknesses of the other's approach. This isn't just a character study. It's a moral experiment. What the show does exceptionally well is punctuating these philosophical debates with narrative stakes. Every time Cooper and Lucy face danger, it reinforces the world's unpredictability. Every moral choice carries consequences, visible and invisible. The cons, initially a threat over food and resources, transform into a symbolic crucible. Their presence forces Lucy to confront what she is willing to risk, and Cooper to confront what he has become. By the time the cons are gone, neither character is unchanged. This is subtle storytelling at its finest. It doesn't scream lessons. It embeds them in action, dialogue, and consequence. The thematic layering continues with Las Vegas. Lucy questions the logic of selective survival, and Cooper's skepticism adds tension. Here, the show elevates the narrative from survival drama to philosophical inquiry. Vegas is not just a location. It is a moral touchstone. Its ability to withstand nuclear devastation raises questions about privilege, pre-apocalypse power, and human responsibility. The city becomes a lens for the audience to consider the moral implications of the apocalypse itself, and Lucy and Cooper's conversation acts as a vehicle for that exploration. Returning to Hank, the story takes on another layer: accountability. The flea soup shopkeeper's testimony isn't just plot exposition. It crystallizes the moral stakes. Hank's actions, unchecked, have caused real suffering. Lucy's insistence on justice, not revenge, sets up a moral tension that drives the next stage of the story. Cooper represents the brutal logic of the world: remove threats, survive, advance. Lucy represents the potential for ethical action to still have meaning in a chaotic landscape. Their disagreement isn't philosophical padding, it is the engine of narrative tension. The audience is drawn into not just what will happen, but how justice is defined in a post-apocalyptic context. The brilliance of this sequence is that it turns what could have been a straightforward chase story into a layered exploration of morality, ethics, and survival psychology. The cons are a test, Las Vegas a question, Hank a moral fulcrum, Lucy hope, and Cooper reality. The show never preaches. It illustrates. Every choice the characters make, every decision they face, is grounded in consequences that are immediately understandable, yet thematically rich. The viewer is invited to ask themselves, would I act like Lucy, holding on to idealism, or like Cooper, embracing pragmatism at moral cost? By the end of this arc, the hunt for Hank becomes secondary. The true story is about the tension between hope and realism, mercy and necessity. Lucy refuses to let the wasteland redefine her values, and Cooper walks beside her not because he believes in her method, but because he still hopes, quietly, that she is right. That hope, fragile and persistent, is what elevates this narrative from mere survival drama to a meditation on what it means to be human when humanity itself is in ruins. Fallout storytelling is subtle but relentless. It asks, through the lens of its characters, whether ethics can survive in a world engineered to reward brutality, and whether hope, however untested, is itself a form of resistance. Ultimately, this segment works on multiple levels simultaneously. On the surface, it's a gripping adventure with violence, high stakes, and dark humor. Underneath, it's a study of morality, a critique of societal privilege, and a meditation on how individuals navigate survival when morality and necessity collide. Lucy and Cooper are not merely characters. They are lenses through which the audience examines their own beliefs about justice, hope, and survival. By blending action with philosophy, Fallout ensures that viewers are not just entertained. They are provoked, challenged, and invested in the outcome. This is exactly the kind of content that builds engagement, sparks discussion, and encourages multiple rewatches, because every scene, every decision carries weight far beyond the immediate narrative. In short, this story segment isn't just about who survives, it's about who deserves to, and whether surviving at the cost of everything that makes you human is really survival at all. Fallout positions Lucy and Cooper as embodiments of these ethical questions, forcing the audience to confront uncomfortable truths while remaining deeply invested in the journey. The brilliance lies in the tension. The wasteland will reward brutality, but hope, when wielded wisely, may still carve out a space for meaning. That tension, balance between morality, action, and consequence, is what keeps viewers glued to the screen and makes this one of the most compelling sequences in the entire series.